Yeah, so basically our community is revitalizing a large communist-era building in the mountains. And the building is over 200 apartments. And we are trying to convert this into a co-living destination for remote workers and digital nomads. Our model is people bought into this project by buying an apartment. And if you buy an apartment, you become part of the co-op that is helping with the renovation of the apartments, but is also running the business of getting the commercial areas up and running. So I started this project, and then I decided we should organize it as a co-op. There's a big construction crew here, about 70 people that the co-op employs to do the renovation. From time to time, we do pop-up events with owners. So last weekend, for example, we had a owner strategy weekend here with about like 25 owners, but normally owners are not staying in their apartments yet. So we are probably about like 6 to 9 months out before owners will move into the building. And then probably a year later, we will be ready for guest operations. The way how we make decisions is actually pretty straightforward. So we use Loomio to get consensus on important decisions, like, for example, which areas we want to renovate in which priority. Normally, a co-op in Bulgaria would require in-person meetings to make decisions, like once a year, the General Assembly. And we structured our statutes in a way that all our decision-making is online, because most of our owners are distributed all across the world. So we're from 32 different countries. And very few people are in Bulgaria constantly. So from the beginning, we wanted to find a model that also people that are remote have full access to all the decisions. So we discuss and vote for everything on Loomio, and then our official General Assemblies just confirm previously done online votes. We have to do the General Assembly in person. So there's a lawyer that's taking notes and stuff, but it's a very lean meeting because we have already decided everything online. And also by our statutes, the meeting in person cannot vote on topics that have not been pre-voted online before. So the General Assembly is more like a formal event for us. And this allows basically people to be part of the governance, even though they're not here. We have also decided to delegate some decision-making, so we don't decide on everything, but as a chairman, I have a management contract, so a lot of the day-to-day operation decisions are delegated to me, but of course, owners still have their input, right? And if they disagree with what I do, then they could overvote me on some topics, and on other topics, I need owners to confirm what we do. So for example, at the beginning of the year, I have to present a budget, and the owners allow me to spend this money or not spend this money and set the priorities. But then during the year, we don't decide how do we paint the walls in one color or another color, or small decisions like this, because we found that this is difficult to manage. We have 130 people. Most of them are very successful in their lives, and they're used to make all the decisions. But if 130 people make all the decisions, you never get anywhere. So we are trying to focus on the important stuff. And use Loomio for it. And even this already shows us that with the size of our group, like 130 people posting, even if every person only posts one post to a topic, it's a lot of posts, right? So there's a lot of engagement, and then sometimes it's also difficult to follow what's going on. People have to read through it, and so there's, of course, as in every organization, there's some owners that are more vocal for some topics and others that are more interested in other topics. And then overall, this allows everyone to feel connected, but they don't have to spend all of their life to figure out like what's going on here in the building.
Back before then, was there a moment that you recall that you were like, okay, we need something more structured than what we're doing? And could you share a little bit about that?
I think it was very clear from the beginning that people will not be able to come to in-person meetings for this project. So it was pretty clear to everyone that we need some kind of digital decision-making platform, and that it should also be easy to kind of figure out what has been discussed before. This is not like an ad hoc thing where you just put a Facebook poll for every discussion, but you need to have some threads. You need to have structure how you can organize information, and also a way how some people can form smaller work groups. So, for example, in the beginning, we had a lot of questions around interior design, and we had some people that were more skilled or interested in artsy things and in design things. So they created a little bit of a working group and then presented to the whole co-op their findings and their recommendations. And this is also pretty easy on Loomio, that you create these subgroups and then you come back and wrap it all up. On the top, we also have specific closed groups. So, for example, for our management board, we also use Loomio to discuss things, also to document, right? So we said that we want to be accountable to what we discuss. So instead of going on a WhatsApp group where then all the discussion is lost, we actually have a structured conversation, and in principle this could also be audited later if somebody wants to see what did the management board discuss, or when we vote a new board, they can see all the past decision making. Maybe not everything is public, but everything should be visible to the people that take over certain roles.
Okay, so I'm hearing that for like documentation and like making sure that you have everything there and you can search it was really important.
It's also because for us, this really is a legally binding vote. So it goes into the trade registry, what we have. So it needed some assurance that, yes, this is a proper way of voting and tracking votes and tracking engagement.
Right. So you guys are just upholding a level of robustness. I'm really curious about engagement. Like you said, you started with 50 people and then moved to 130. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I can imagine that certain people are really, really heavily engaged and others may not be. And like a lot of these people have a similar ownership level. How do you handle varying levels of engagement?
Well, I think this is more of a personal decision of everyone, how much time and effort they can spend on this, right? And there are some people that just have more time and that are more engaged. And there's other people that basically believe, okay, if there's a sufficient amount of people discussing, then they are okay with going with the majority decision for most of the things. Of course, there might be some topics where somebody feels more passionate about, and then they come back into the discussion. What I like about Loomio is there's this participation report, and I shared this a few times with our group to show them that unfortunately we have only like half of our members are actually using Loomio at all, right? So even for important votes, they stay out. And of the other half of people that use Loomio, there's maybe like 10 that are super active, and then 40 to 50 that mostly read and maybe log in once a month or so just to see what's going on. But I think this is okay. So I wouldn't expect that everyone needs to be super engaged. It's more important to show this transparency and give people the option to engage, right? So that they can see how decisions are being made. And at any time they have the opportunity to also be part of the decision making. And if they choose not to be part of it, then go with the majority. Then I think this is also fine.
Yeah, I'm curious if you have any thoughts, Rob.
Oh gosh, I find it so exciting to hear about this.
Yeah.
Is it a place where people can start their own discussions about things, or is it more structured than that? And how did you establish a process to use?
Yeah, so this is also a good question. So initially, we had this more like the management board brings up topics, and then we ask for specific votes for specific topics. And in principle, legally, it's still like this because the management board ultimately decides which topics go to the General Assembly unless specific thresholds are met in terms of participation. We have opened this up after many people said, hey, it would be super cool if members could also bring up votes. So we changed this, and they felt very vocal that we should allow it. But then it turned out that it's not really used.
Yeah, but there's still that openness, and they know it's allowed, and they know, so if they desire to go that road, they can. Great. And one last question on like when it got started. I'm curious if you could go back and think to when you started implementing Loomio. Is there anything that you were like, oh, I wish I knew this, like right when I started?
Actually, I think it was pretty easy to use. So I have not discovered a feature now that we didn't know before. I think it's pretty straightforward for what we do, but I think our votes are really simple. So we have only used basically simple polls, and once or twice we used like this dot scoring thing, but our votes are super easy. So I think there's more complex ways how you can do more complex votes in Loomio, and maybe there more help is required, but we don't have these complex votes. So we have pretty simple votes.
I'm wondering how you manage any conflicts that come up or tensions.
I mean, this is where Loomio really helps, right? So because we
Yeah.
do decisions by majority votes. And this is difficult for some people because some people always believe their way is the only way. And of
Right.
course, for me, as a chairman, it's also difficult because if people come to me, they're sometimes very, very vocal what their position is. But then bringing this to the whole group to make a vote and say, okay, how should we do this? Should we do it this way or that way? It makes it much easier for me because then I'm not the one who has to decide this. And of course, people have to learn that they have to live with the majority decisions, but so far this worked out pretty well. I mean, before we vote, people are normally very, very vocal, but then after we have voted, everyone is like, okay, now we have made a decision and that's a decision. Maybe on one topic, the majority overvotes you, and on another topic, you're part of the majority. So it's just how it works.
Yeah. We interviewed another customer of Loomio last year who was running a co-living community. And I also live in a co-living community as well. And just, I think a lot of times these communities really push to default to consensus decision making, right? And it sounds like you've really created a culture of like, okay, well, everyone's had time to contribute to this decision, and this is what is the group decided, and we're moving forward. And of course, as a person who's leading it, you have a lot of people to engage. So yeah, I'm just curious on that because I always feel the consensus tries to like move in.
The thing we notice with Loomio a lot is that a lot of the time it can be the beginning of a group of people developing a practice of decision making. So it can feel quite prickly at first. There's a lot of, I'd say, emotional development that people need to do when they enter into a collaborative decision making process. And so people will only be able to get through that by having the experience and learning. And so after a while, they get better at it and better at looking after each other while they take that process and realizing how it can be a really involved process. And the other thing is, intentionally choosing your decision-making practices. So the time and effort involved in a real consensus process is often something people decide they don't want to do. And so choosing a majority rules or a consent process or whatever it is, but the group developing it themselves, can make a big difference.
Can you share a little bit more about the rhythms of decision-making and proposals that you have with Loomio? And are there any other ways that you're communicating? Is everything going through Loomio, or are there other tools that you use?
I mean, we also have a WhatsApp group, but this is more like a gossip group. So we have for like for jokes and for banter, we have a WhatsApp group. But for owners, we really try to get everything through Loomio. Also, we use Loomio, for example, for email notifications. So instead of sending a newsletter, we create a thread on Loomio, and then people get it on email. So I think it makes sense to keep things together, because the biggest challenge is that if information lives in too many different channels, then people can't find it anymore, right? And this is difficult because also people don't engage every day. Maybe they log in once a week or once a month. They want to know what's going on. And then if this is in too many different channels, it's a problem. I think what was super useful for us for some of the longer decisions is when the feature changed, that we can see what is the latest post and what are the unread posts, and also like the threading, like collapsing some of the topics, because sometimes it becomes difficult for people to really follow what's happening, right? So especially if you have many, many posts on a thread, it's hard. So this made it easier for people to follow. There's still people that don't fully understand everything and that ask the same questions again and again, but this really helps.